Hello and welcome to the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosboll, and joining me today is Kathy Washburn. Kathy is a highly regarded and influential life coach, speaker, and podcaster specializing in positive psychology, emotional health, and post-traumatic growth. Her transformative insights have resonated with over 30,000 individuals worldwide through her words, stage presence, and engaging podcast, Investment of Self. Kathy's expertise has been showcased on prestigious platforms such as the University of Minnesota Medical Center, TEDx Hawkesbury, Canada, Close Up Talk Radio, Elephant Journal, and Scribd. With a diverse range of certifications in positive psychology, coaching, and neuroscience, coupled with an impressive 25 years of investment experience, Kathy is recognized as a leading authority in her field. She's passionate about helping selfless, overachieving, exhausted humans transition from living externally to begin to invest in themselves, leading to deeper connection, balance, and personal fulfillment. Wow. Selfless, overachieving, exhausted humans. I don't think any of us fall into that category at all. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And every time I hear that bio, it makes me smile. It's often like you look back and you think, wow, okay, maybe I have done some things in my life I can be proud of, but I don't often hear that about myself, which is very similar to these selfless, overachieving, exhausted humans. We don't even take time to realize, like, oh, I've actually done a lot.
I actually hear that a lot. People, they send over their bio and it's like, this is what I want you to read. And then they hear it and go, oh my gosh, that's me. Like I've actually done all of these things. I don't give myself credit for my achievements nearly often enough. So that's why I love asking for a bio and being able to praise people for all that they've done in their lives.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You are very welcome. All right, so let's start where we always start. So it was not mentioned in your bio, but you are a cancer survivor. So let's kind of get started talking about that. When were you diagnosed? What was going on in your life when you were initially diagnosed?
I was diagnosed at 35. I was diagnosed with stage 4 of vulvar cancer. And it was quite shocking at the time because I was probably in the best physical shape I'd ever been in my life. I was in the 11th month of a yoga teacher training program, a really intense one. And
you had the mindset and mindfulness down pat going through that.
I had the mindfulness. I could do crow pose, which is a really hard handstand.
I know that's always been a goal for me, and I've done it for maybe 2 seconds, and that's about it.
Mine was beautiful, I have to say, in that 11th month. I mean, I was eating, sleeping, and drinking yoga. Also, a mother of 2 young boys. At the time, they were 4 and 6. And I was still working for the investment company that I helped start, but I had moved to Minnesota just months before that. And so I was working remotely before remote working was a thing. But I still was trying to be a 10 out of 10 in all areas of my life. And this one particular weekend, I was at the Saturday workshop and I had, yoga pants on. And I was like, wow, what is that bump? Like it was protruding out of my groin. And I felt really tired. It was right around Halloween. And so I found myself in the back of the room, kind of leaning against a wall, just being super tired. And all of a sudden, a week and a half later, I was diagnosed with stage 4 vulvar cancer. And it didn't make sense to me. I was like, wait, how can a tumor be growing in a body that is so physically fit? I mean, there's years of my life that I wasn't very fit. And here I was. And I even asked my oncologist that. And he said, yeah, other than cancer, you're a really healthy woman. So
So was
It
that like
was,
feeling that bump? Was that the first indication that you even had? I mean, stage four, normally you know about it far in advance of that.
well, this is the problem. Because I was really healthy, many of the things were overlooked. You know, somebody told me that when you go to a doctor, the diagnosis is determined within the first 90 seconds. So you have to be really, really clear on how you present yourself. And we'll talk about type C, but my personality was okay. You know, things aren't feeling great, but I'm okay. I give them a big toothy smile, and I'm so grateful for your time. And they call this, I've since learned, the perfect patient syndrome, and I
Mm,
was definitely a perfect patient. So I think those first 90 seconds had gave the opportunity to the medical whoever I was dealing with that it's not so bad. She's not, she's not sick. She's fine. We all know what fine means.
right.
so so I think it went misdiagnosed. I probably ignored a lot of things. I had an issue from the day I delivered my second son. So I was chronically in pain for 4 years. I had this, they kept thinking I had a yeast infection, but I tested negative. They kept putting me on antibiotics. So that's how I found yoga. I was trying to find something to help me with this chronic vaginal pain that
Wow.
sometimes was told that it was like all in my head. Other times, I went to all different doctors. So I kind of went on this path of taking care of myself, ignoring myself, taking care of myself. And I
So the signs were
really,
there, you were just ignoring them.
exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. I and my medical team, actually.
Because you were fine.
I
Everything was
was
fine.
fine. Everything was fine. Do you know the acronym for fine?
I do, and this is a family show, so we'll
Yeah.
say, was it insecure, neurotic, and what's the E stand for?
Emotional.
Emotional. Yes. And then the
The
effed up
first
is
one
the
you can say frustrated. Frustrated.
okay, there you go. Frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, right?
Yes.
All right. So how was treatment? Did you do all the things? I
Mm.
don't know that much about vulvar cancer, so just
Yes,
tell us a little
I
bit about what you had to go through.
I had a radical vulvectomy, which means half of my vulva was removed. I went through as much radiation as they could give me because I was told I had to hit it really hard, or it didn't look, the prognosis wasn't good. So I
Did
got
you have
my,
that internal radiation also, as well as the external, or
it was internal. It was probably the most dehumanizing thing that I've ever experienced. I wrote a blog post a long time about a long time ago about that was the moment I ghosted my body because it required me to lay on this metal table with my legs splayed open like a butterfly, and I had this pillow that would lock my legs in, so I was buck naked. And who do you think my radiologist is?
a
The
man?
most handsome,
Oh,
gorgeous. I'll never forget him. My actual radiologist didn't do, but my radiotherapist, whatever you call it, Jason. He's like, "Hi, I'm Jason. I'm going to be with
oh
you for
my
the next
God.
45 days." And I was like, "Of course you are, Jason. God dang it." So there was this moment where he was kind of locking my legs in place, and I was trying to look everywhere in the room other than at his big, beautiful blue eyes. And I started crying, like tears just started leaking out of my face. And he looked right at me and he said, "I promise this is going to get easier." And I thought to myself, the humiliation of this or the pain, because it was painful to hold my legs in the way that they had built these pillows. And it was that moment that I believe I ghosted my body. Like energetically separated myself from the waist down. It was like my body betrayed me. It was humiliating. I was ashamed. He was not. He was very kind and empathetic, but it was just, yeah. So I had surgery, radiation, and I would go into the hospital for a week at a time for
Wow.
chemo, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then go home, and then go back in, and then go home. And we did several rounds of that. So it was a hellacious year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But all good, right?
All good. And in hindsight, one in which I, like many cancer survivors, were either encouraged by others or encouraged by self to just move along and get back to normal. So that's what I did. I swallowed all of the crazy thoughts that were going inside about uh, my sexual health, my emotional health, all of it. I stuffed it, put on my big toothy smile, and told everybody I was fine. Show's over, people. Get back to work.
I just want it back here. Like it's over, it's done, and let's go on with life and not deal with any of the emotional PTSD that goes along with it. Yes. Very, very common, unfortunately.
I know, too common.
Well, and I think a lot of times people, not necessarily like other people expect it, but it's like once you're done with treatment, once you've been given the all clear, family and friends are like, okay, you're good. Like
Yeah.
let's just go on, and we don't ever want to talk about it again because it's horrible to be reminded of. Meanwhile, the person going through it is still like, hey, I'm still here and I still have all of this, all of this happened to me.
Right. And there's no processing time. I don't know if when you finished your treatment, in a lot of hospitals, they have this ritual of ringing a bell.
Yeah, mine was a little gong.
Yeah. That practice or that ritual was started by a man in the military, that where he was in the Navy, I believe, and the bell meant the fight is over. And I get so mad at this bell thing because I think instead of a bell, it should be a bridge. The bell,
Oh.
the fight is not over. Cancer is a very unique disease in that this the way that we treat the disease causes more problems and long-term side effects than the cancer itself. And it's a we disease, which means it doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody that we influence. Like you just said, family and friends are like, okay, let's move along. She's okay. Like, we don't want to even think about that. So it creates this really difficult container sometimes, especially for women, which with a personality that is people pleasing, that wants to avoid conflict, that doesn't like the limelight on them, that is a giver, not really good at receiving. So to be able to have people in their kitchen rearranging their cabinets, like, whoa, please, a little bit of a control thing, because um, it doesn't really work for those personality behaviors, that transition.
And so now you are cancer free, so stage 4 completely gone. Picture of health now, at
I
least cancer free.
am. I am dancing with
Congratulations.
Ned. I know. Here I am almost 23 years later, and there's
Wow.
I still go to Minnesota to have lunch with my oncologist once a year. And
Aw.
we had this really fun shift like 6 years ago. I call him by his name, and he's like, "Please call me Peter. Where I'm not your doctor, like, I'm your friend, and you coming here is as important as me to me as I think it is to you." because I don't normally see clients that are 23 years out. And your issues that you're dealing with now are difficult. And unfortunately, they're not well uh, researched because there's not many of you. So I feel really blessed to still be here.
That's awesome. Do you want to talk a little bit about the long term, side effects?
Yes.
I kind of equate cancer treatment to like a seatbelt or an airbag in a car. Like if you're in an accident, those things are going to stop you from dying, but
Mm.
most of the time they increase injury while preventing death. And I think that cancer treatments, it's a bad analogy,
Wow.
but it is kind of a similar thing.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Love that analogy. The biggest side effect that has been quite emotionally devastating for me was the sexual, and that was never really talked about. In fact, I remember getting this woman coming in the middle of the night during one of those weeks, and she had a little basket, and she had a white plastic dilator and lidocaine, and she said, "You need to insert this 3 times, at least 3 times a day for 15 or 20 minutes. The lidocaine will help with the pain, but believe me, you'll be happy that you did this." And she left. I never saw her again. I almost feel like it was some kind of mirage. If I didn't have the basket with me, I would have thought I would making it all up. But I got to tell you, inserting anything into a radiated vulvar and vagina, penal or plastic, it just wasn't going to happen. It was excruciatingly painful, and this constant reminder of like I couldn't even look at myself. So no emotional help with that. No, um, no anything. And I was in a marriage that was already kind of rocky around that area, and many others in hindsight. So that on top of it, like we just couldn't deal with it. And I started, after months, I started sexual activity again, but lathered in lidocaine. So lidocaine is a numbing gel. So
Mhm.
that was the only option I got from my doctors is, here you go. You can numb yourself in order to have pleasure. There is no pleasure there. So I got really good at it. I was able to like be in the corner of the room watching. I could literally take myself out of my body, which doesn't
Well,
really bode well for an intimate relationship.
sure. Well, it's almost like you learn that going through your radiation treatments, and it was kind of a defense mechanism that you were able to go to, anytime there was something uncomfortable or painful or humiliating.
Exactly. I actually never put those two together. Yeah, I just continued that ghosting of my body, and I was a ghost kind of rising up in the corner. So I had that, and that was a big issue that I ignored. And then also the radiation caused lots of different issues with urinary incontinence, fecal incontinence, which I've been dealing with for years, all kinds of fun little tricks and various doctors. Um, Ultimately will probably lead to ostomy bags, but I'm still here, and I'm grateful for that. And the technology has gotten really good over those 23 years. So
And now you have an amazing relationship with a man who loves you for exactly who you are.
I do. It's crazy how that works out. Yes, I ended up getting, unfortunately, and this is what I really am so passionate about now, is I feel like I kind of flitted away the second chance by getting back to normal and having nothing change externally. Internally, life was very changed for me, but I didn't know how. I didn't know that I could have this courage to change and be an authentic version of myself. So for 15 years, I stayed in that marriage. I stayed working in the investment world. I was really good at what I did. I wasn't, it didn't fulfill me. I felt like, oh, okay, I'm helping rich people get rich. Like, oh, go me with my second life. Like it just, and I really, one thing that I'm really proud of is I was so intent with my relationship with my sons. I didn't think that I was going to be with them after 4 years. That was the diagnosis. So I really, I stopped the craziness where we were like doing a million things and I was not present with them. I spent full summers with them at our cabin in Maine, and my work allowed it. And it was such a special time. We just became kind of like the Three Musketeers. So
Aw.
that I'm really, really grateful I got to watch those two boys turn into amazing young men through that 15 years. But I got to tell you, other than that, those 15 years weren't fulfilling for me as I watched friends and other people that I worked with on a volunteer basis in the cancer world die. I was like, why am I still here? There's got to be a better thing for me. And that did not happen until the end of my marriage. And my marriage, like many marriages, end in betrayal. And I actually kind of expected it almost at that point. But then he felt moved to share with me that he had been cheating on me for 18 of the 25 years we were married. And that absolutely rocked my world. It was harder for me than the cancer diagnosis because it kind of shattered the world that I knew as it existed. Like everything felt untrue to me. Everything, I kind of questioned everything. It was just this fake world. And like the Three Little Pigs, I use this reference a lot in my work. Like when bad things happen, you can rebuild yourself up and throw the sticks up and the twigs. And when the big bad wolf life comes huffing and puffing again, you're going to start from ground zero. And I see that after cancer, I threw up a house of sticks. And it was a very insecure way of being. And in this crazy moment, I decided this was going to be different. I was not going to fake it. I wasn't going to let this end of my marriage ruin me. I wasn't going to let him take what, part of what I believed I built. Also, I had seen so many friends go through divorce and just lose everything because they're so emotional when they're going through it, and they lose their touch. And so just serendipitously, I Googled, I don't even know what it was on that dark night of the soul, but up came the science of happiness. And I took this course through the Berkeley school, the University of California, Berkeley, online through this TEDx or edX platform. And that first night, I was up till 3:30 in the morning. I was absolutely blown away that this even existed, that this positive psychology, this ability to kind of rise up in the face of devastation, it like literally changed my life.
Well, they say that the biggest breakthroughs come from the biggest breakdowns. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to know that, the only way like up is the only way to go. So it sucks that it happens, but it can be the best thing ever in the long run.
It
And it
really,
sounds like that was where you were.
yeah, yeah. I definitely the world of positive psychology, one that I didn't even know existed, um, really gives people a hand in that process. Like both things can be true. Your life can absolutely suck and you're at rock bottom, and there is good and right inside you at that very same moment.
Mhm.
There are moments that you can be okay in this moment. Like my heart's breathing, my fingers move, my lungs inflate. In this moment, I'm okay. And then the next moment, and I can go back to the house of crazy, which is where I was, but understanding that you have power and choice and efficacy at the same time when you feel powerless. And I felt very powerless in my cancer journey. I felt like I didn't know my body. I relied on these people thinking they knew my body better than I did. It was a different kind of process.
Yeah. And this positive psychology, I mean, there's probably a lot more to it, but I am a huge proponent, and I have had, a practice for, gosh, over 10 years of gratitude. And no matter what is going on in your life, like, okay, I woke up this morning, like there's always something to be grateful for. I went through a period of depression, when my daughter
Mm,
was graduating high school. And I went back to, like, I wrote down everything that I was grateful for one day. And every time I was feeling that, I would go back to that list. And I mean, I went and I got help, I got therapy, but just being able to see, hey, these are all of the good things in your
mm.
life, no matter what you're feeling right now, and what a difference that it made for me. And I know so many other people as well. So would you agree that positive psychology has a lot to do with gratitude?
Oh, it is the cornerstone of positive psychology. There's so much research. And it's interesting. My sister gave me a gratitude journal when I was going through cancer 23 years ago before it was popular.
It
But
was a thing, right?
Oprah introduced it. She saw it on Oprah. And so she got me this gratitude journal. I still have it. And like you said, there were some days was I'm grateful for the sun.
Yeah.
I got nothing. And it was all, always I was grateful for my sons. But it's it is a little bit of a brain rewiring or a paradigm shift when you're in that mud, and you can also realize that this is also true. And when I introduce it for clients, I've added, I am grateful for X because it makes me feel Y. So
Ooh.
adding that element of how it makes me feel, because a lot of people that I work with haven't given themselves permission to feel for a really long time. And feeling, I feel like one of the portals to that is feeling through pleasure. So they begin to understand, like, oh, I I'm grateful for the sunshine because it makes me feel warm. They start to become sensual um, through that gratitude practice, which is a door.
Wow. I love that. I have not really put that together before. And I just
Mm,
wrote it down because that is really powerful to, because you can say, like, oh, I'm grateful for my husband, and I'm grateful for my kids, and I'm grateful that I woke up this morning, and and go through the list. But attaching that, because it makes me feel, maybe more internalizes it versus just like, hey, I'm doing this, remote whatever, and blah
yeah.
blah blah, checking off a box. Yes, exactly. So I love that. I'm going to
Oh,
add
I'm
that to my
glad.
list.
Thank you. I'm glad that is generative for you.
All right, so let's get into a little bit about type C personality, because we all know, everybody's heard of type A personality, and then type B, where we all want to be just zen and everything is wonderful, and most of us never get there. But we don't hear too much about type C, and I know you've made, like, this your
Mm,
life's work. So talk to us about what is type C personality, and what can we do if we discover that that's us.
yes. I stand on the shoulders of a remarkable woman. Her name is Dr. Lydia Temashak. and I stumbled upon her work as I was creating the capstone for my positive psychology certification. It was a year-long program I went through, and I stumbled upon her work. The book is called, I have it behind me. I'll show it to you in a second because I'm connected. The Type C Connection, and the byline, hold on.
And we'll put these in the show notes too, if people want to.
Yes. The Type C Connection, the behavioral links to cancer and your health.
Ooh.
And when I saw that, I mean, I just got the chills. I still get the chills because I was like, oh my goodness, behavioral link to cancer? What? So Dr. Tomaszak prefers not to call it a personality type. She uses the language behavioral patterns because she really wants to reiterate the fact that it can be changed. You can learn differently. And we often, most of the time, acquired these behavioral patterns in ways that helped us feel loved, kept us safe, and in some instances helped us survive when we were younger. But her work was done at the same time that the type A and type B work was done. In fact, she used the same questions as her peers. She was very good friends with the other two men that were doing the research. And she was asking them to an HIV clinic and at a cancer, or I'm trying to think of what hospital it was, but at a cancer hospital in California, and she was getting the complete opposite answers as the type A. So the type A, they were asking them to people in the heart or cardiac unit at a hospital, very stressed out, a little aggressive, short-tempered. Well, the type C was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm really worried about my family. Oh, that nurse has a lot of things to do. Like, I don't need to ask her for what I need in this moment. She's very busy. So she was seeing these behavioral patterns that were basically a denial of their needs. And in a lot of ways, some of us grow up actually encouraged to deny what our body's telling us in very innocuous ways. Like, you say, Mom, I'm hungry. And she says, you're not hungry. Dinner's not until 6. So your little 5-year-old self says, oh, right. Okay. I'm not hungry. Or you go to the teacher and say, I have to use the bathroom. And the teacher's like, well, recess is in 45 minutes. Like these ways that we were basically taught to disassociate with our body or not listen to our body. And then on top of that, if you're in an environment where asking for what you need was too much for the people that loved you into being, maybe you were too loud or too needy, or it wasn't well received. So you slowly learned, okay, I don't really need anything. I can get quieter. I can disappear, and somebody else's needs are more important, or I need to contort myself to somebody else that has a bigger personality, or there's lots of different, you can imagine what happens there. But what can happen is we become what they call, it's like an identity where we don't know where somebody else's needs end and ours begin. So there's this merging. It's called an others identity, where, and I got so good at this, I can feel through other people. I knew when my ex-husband didn't have a good day at work, and I could, like a spidey sense, I could adjust myself, stuff my own feelings and needs down, and work with or do whatever needed to be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But it's a little different. I mean, there is the part of just being empathetic. And when, somebody's having a bad day, we can be with them through that versus, okay, I'm never going to talk about what's going on with me. There's the give and take, like we both can have our emotions and connect that way. Or as you're saying, we never get to share our own because we're always worried about the other person.
Exactly. And I see the gift is, there's two sides to the coin. If you see yourself as a people pleaser or avoid conflict, there's also another side, a brighter side to that coin. If you're a people pleaser, you're likely a really kind, empathetic human being. And I see so many in the caring professions that often there's this line that gets crossed where you start getting the love that you need through the doing for others versus feeling like you can stand up and ask for what you need on your own. Like those two things start getting a little blurry.
Okay. And now talk about, and I don't want to say that, that if you have this type C personality, you're going to get cancer, but talk to me a little bit about like the link and where this can fit in a cancer diagnosis.
Yes. So I like that you just stated that because it's not going to cause cancer. It is one of many things in a perfect storm. And like anything, it's one more lever that you can pull to make, to create a better future self for you. So the cancer world says de-stress, change your diet, exercise, don't smoke. There should be another one is check your emotional health. And if you're feeling like overwhelmed, doing for others, if you're feeling resentful, resentment is a really, really tough one for me because that was exactly how I walked around in the world. And I can't help but even say that word without hearing the word cement. So
Mm.
I really felt like I cemented this armor around myself, trying to please the world around me as a way for deeper connection. But because I was denying my own needs and not clear about them, I was actually untrustworthy in that relationship. And
Sure.
that prevented me from actually having the deep interactions with other humans that I so desperately wanted. So it was, and that there's resentment is kind of wrapped up in that. So it's what happens is when you're emotionally suppressing, or you're suppressing your emotions, your needs, your desires, your immune system is just really taxed. And our immune system, as we've all learned, is responsible for a boatload of things physiologically in our body. So if we're suppressing our emotions, we're in some way suppressing our immune system. So we can't fight off infection. We can't fight off things that are happening in our body, as well as somebody that is very expressive, like a type B, um, can fight off. And just like a type A is prone to heart issues because of the stress on their heart, a type C person is prone to immune issues, including cancer. And that's Lydia Temashok's work.
Okay. So if people are listening to this and they say, oh my gosh, that is me, can you kind of share maybe like, other than knowing, like, other than the acknowledgement, like, hey, this is me, what is like the first thing that someone can do to begin to make the shift?
The first thing I would say is you owe yourself the love that you give to other people.
Ooh.
That's not my quote. I believe the person that said that was named Ralph Smart. I don't remember many things, but for some reason I always remember that because his name's so interesting.
I love that.
But it really starts there. You owe yourself the love that you give to other people. And I have not met one person that aligns with this type C behavior pattern who isn't a giver. So this idea of like, oh, I can give to myself, like how does that work? And there's a process that I take clients through, but the first process is really understanding who they are. And that might sound so silly, but often they're so busy walking through the world, they kind of lost themselves. So I use positive psychology in a huge way on this step, because there are surveys that people can go and fill out. And who doesn't like to do like a personality test, right? You can find out what character you are in Harry Potter,
Yeah.
or you can find out your top personal strengths. And so I use the VIA character strengths. It's viacharacter.org. And VIA stands for values in action. And many people are probably familiar with like Myers-Briggs
Mm-hmm.
or Strength Finders. And the difference that I would say is that if you're a tree, the VIA character are your roots. And the Myers-Briggs and the Strength Finders are how you reach out into the world. So they're your branches.
Okay.
And so getting that data, seeing like, oh my goodness, yeah, that is me. And it's astonishing. It brings a tear to my eye, because every time I do this, women mostly, I've worked with a few men, but all of the women, they look at this list and it's like it's the first time they've acknowledged. It's kind of like when you were reading my bio. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that is me. And I am good. There's good and right inside of me. I also take them through a process of values determination. And again, I use a lot of positive psychology. I use James Clear. He has a big list of values. And I invite people to just on day one, circle all the values that pop out, that look exciting to you. On day two, take the ones that popped out and cull that in half. And on day three, cull that again. Because usually when people are so disconnected with themselves, they're like, oh my God, yes, I want to be that. I want to be that. I want to be that. Or that is important to me. That is important to me. And we start to shift into that, finding what their core values are. And then it's that great awakening where it's like, okay, if those things are important to you, where do they play out in your daily life? And there's this sudden awareness that like, well, health is really valuable to me, but I don't have any time. So there's this reorientation with time, and understanding time is on your side, and you can use it, and actually it becomes very generative. And I often, when I'm working with people, their values are often, it's important for me to be loving. It's important to me to be giving. So it's very outward oriented. So I have them reorient to like, okay, what's valuable to you inside? And it's really getting at that root of separating the othersness and the need for othersness, and to be on solid ground and really know who they are. So that's a big first step.
Okay.
And
That
the
is,
second,
and this is what you do
this is
now,
what I
right?
do.
Okay. So how can people find you? How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about this work?
Yes, my website is Kathy with a K, kathywashburn.net. And there's loads of ways that you can get in touch with me through that website. And then I have my Instagram is Kathy Washburn, DOTNET. I thought that was really smart when I did it, but it's a little long.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
Uh, it's really, if there's one thing I would leave your audience with, it's you deserve, again, everything that you give to other people. And when you do, I am a transform type C, and I would say what's on the other side of that bridge is deep, fulfilled joy, and it's so much easier. It's like, God dang it! Had I known this a long time ago, I can actually achieve what I want to achieve, and it's so much easier. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is the perfect place to wrap this up. I absolutely love that,
Mm,
and just know that type C's can be reformed if you're willing
yes.
to put in the work. And I love this. You owe yourself the love you give to others. That is just it's my new mantra.
There you go. That's a good one for 2025.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Kathy, today. I really appreciate it. This is such great information that I know a lot of people don't even know about. So this is going to be eye-opening to a lot
Hmm.
of people. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing for the type C's in the world.
Oh, it's an honor. And thank you for your gift of time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.